What if the life you've been building so carefully doesn't actually belong to you? Not in a dramatic way, not like a stolen identity, but quietly, gradually, the way a river reshapes its banks without anyone noticing until the water is gone. Kierkegaard had a name for this, and once you hear it, you may never look at your choices the same way again. Think about the last major decision you made: a job, a city, a relationship, a degree. Now ask yourself, genuinely ask yourself, where did that decision come from? Was it yours? Or did it arrive pre-assembled, handed to you by a parent, a culture, a fear you never stopped to name? Most of us never ask this question. And that's not because we're careless, it's because the life we've inherited fits well enough. It doesn't pinch too much, it doesn't suffocate, it just sits slightly wrong, like wearing someone else's coat. You can walk in it, you can even forget it's not yours. But somewhere underneath, some part of you knows. There's a peculiar kind of exhaustion that comes from living this way. Not burnout from doing too much, but a deeper fatigue from doing things that were never meant for you. You show up, you perform, you achieve, and then you sit alone at the end of a good day and feel nothing. That feeling has a name, and it's more common than anyone wants to admit. Søren Kierkegaard, the 19th century Danish philosopher, spent his entire life obsessed with one question: what does it mean to be a self? Not a role, not a reputation, not a set of accomplishments, an actual, living, breathing self. And what he found disturbed him. He noticed that most people, even educated, thoughtful, successful people, never become themselves at all. He called this the aesthetic stage of existence. In this stage, a person shapes their identity not from within, but from without. They become a mirror of the world around them. They adopt the values their parents celebrated, the ambitions their culture rewarded, the personality that made people like them most. And the terrifying part? It all feels completely voluntary. You think you chose your career because you love it, but did you? Or did you love the approval it earned? Did you choose your partner because of who they are, or because they fit the image of what love is supposed to look like? Kierkegaard called this living in the crowd. And the crowd, he said, is the enemy of the self. Not because the crowd is evil, but because the crowd makes it easy to disappear into it, to let its voice become your voice, to let its dreams replace your own. We live in the most crowded moment in human history, not physically, but mentally. Every morning before you've had a single thought of your own, you've already absorbed the anxieties of strangers, the curated successes of people you barely know, the opinions of voices you never chose to let in. Social media didn't invent this problem, but it perfected it. It gave the crowd a microphone. It gave comparison a 24-hour feed. And it made living someone else's life feel not just normal, but aspirational. You don't just inherit a life from your parents anymore. You can inherit it from an influencer, from a podcast host, from a comment section, from the quiet accumulation of 1,000 things you scrolled past and absorbed without realizing. And here's the insidious part. The more successful this borrowed life becomes, the harder it is to question it. Because now you have evidence, the promotion, the house, the relationship that photographs well. These things become proof that you're on the right path. But proof of what exactly? that the life fits, or just that you've gotten very good at wearing it? Kierkegaard would say this is precisely where the danger lies. Not in failure, in a success so complete that you never feel the need to ask who I am underneath all of this. He wrote about a man he called the Philistine. Not in the insulting sense, but in a philosophical one. A person who has organized their entire existence around comfort and convention. Who has made peace with the crowd so thoroughly that the question of selfhood simply never comes up. This person isn't unhappy exactly. But they are, in Kierkegaard's word, unconscious, moving through life like a sleepwalker who has learned to smile. There is a moment, and perhaps you felt it, when the life you're living suddenly becomes visible to you. Like waking up mid-sentence in a conversation and realizing you have no idea what you've been saying. It happens at strange times, in the silence after a party where everything went perfectly, on the morning after a milestone you worked years to reach, on a random Tuesday when the light comes through the window at an angle, and something in you goes completely still, and for just a moment, before the noise rushes back in, you feel it. The gap. The distance between the life you're performing and the life that is waiting quietly for you to finally come back to it. Kierkegaard called this despair, but not the kind we usually mean. He didn't mean crying. He didn't mean darkness. He meant the ache of not being yourself. The slow, almost imperceptible grief of living a life that was built for someone else's specifications. And here is what's remarkable. He considered this despair a gift. Because you cannot feel a gap unless something real is on the other side of it. That restlessness you can't explain? That's not a symptom of something wrong with you. That's the sound of your actual self knocking on the door. Kierkegaard believed that becoming yourself was the hardest, most courageous thing a human being could do. Not because it requires grand gestures. Not because it means burning your life down and starting over on a mountain somewhere. But because it requires something quieter and more terrifying. Honesty. The willingness to sit with yourself long enough to hear what's actually there beneath the performance. To ask, without flinching, which of these choices were mine? What do I actually want, stripped of what I was taught to want? These questions have no easy answers, and they don't arrive on a schedule. But the moment you start asking them, genuinely, not rhetorically, something shifts. The crowd gets quieter, your own voice gets louder, and the life you are living starts to become slowly, unmistakably yours. Kierkegaard wrote, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are, and the most radical act of a human life is simply to refuse that despair, not with noise, not with rebellion, but with the quiet daily courage to choose yourself over and over again, even when no one is watching, even when there is no applause, even when the crowd moves on without you, especially then. If something in this video made you pause, if a word landed somewhere you weren't expecting, I'd genuinely love to know what it was. Leave it in the comments. Even just a sentence. These conversations matter more than you might think. And if you want to keep exploring ideas like this, subscribing means the next one will find you when you need it most. Thank you for watching, and for thinking.